After getting bounced in the first round by the Toronto Maple Leafs, will the Tampa Bay Lightning be able to reach the greatest heights they have before by winning a Stanley Cup championship? Captain Paul for the Locker Room. Appreciate if you drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already. Let's get right into this season preview. Now, Tampa Bay Lightning currently $6.9 million over the cap. And with the LTIR being put on the books, they'd be about $73 million against the cap. So they'd have to, manipulate some space, but that's not the worst thing in the world. John Cooper is behind the bench yet again. Let's, look into this Tampa Bay Lightning team that, they are in a win now situation. They are not looking to kick this can down the road. They feel like they still have that core. That's why they traded so much draft capital for Tanner Jeannot. And let's just get right into these lines. Now, I have to preface every single video by this. Cap Friendly sometimes does weird lines. So I'm not saying this is going to be the first, second, third line or things of that nature. I'm just letting you know these are the players currently on the roster, most likely will be making the team. But let's just get right into it. So right now on Cap Friendly, it's Braden Point, Brendan Hagel, and Kucherov on that first line. Now, Kucherov, that guy's a stud. 113 points, 82 games played. That guy is a awesome hockey player. Still have them under contract for a few more years. Braden Point is one of the best centers in the NHL. If you watch my top 5 list, I believe I had him number 4 or number 3. I forget, but he's in my top 5 centers in the NHL right now. And Brendan Hagel, he came over from the Blackhawks, and I think he's going to add a nice dimension to that line. He was pretty solid for him last season. He's 25 years old. They have him in a reasonable cap hit. He's going to be a pretty good player for a long time. And the thing with this Tampa Bay Lightning team is they don't have much draft capital going forward. And maybe they could trade a piece or two to maybe like surplus, get another second round or possibly a first round, depending on who they trade out. But a lot of, relatively speaking, their core is relatively young. 33 years old up front. Watching, Glendening's 34, but Stamkos is still only 33 years old, even with all his injuries. So getting into that second line, Stamkos, Cirelli, and Sheary. Now, Stamkos is still very good at this age, center/left wing. They have him slotted in here left wing, 84 points in 81 games played. Stamkos is still a premier goal scorer, can hit that. I still believe is a good 40 goal scorer in the right situation. And Cirelli and Sheary, when I'm looking at this second line, like their first line is one of the better ones in the NHL. When I'm looking at the second line, just taking for what it is, it's solid. Stamkos brings them to that next gear to probably being an about above average second line. But with Cirelli and Sheary, they got to kind of help, bring him to that next level. I think Cirelli, there's more in the tank there. If he would have been around a 40-point scorer if he played a full season. And Sheary, I think, 37 points. It makes you want a little bit more from that second line, but I think it's an average NHL second line. Now, this is going to be a very, very interesting thing here, right? Because Alex, I'm going to butcher the name, Barré-Boulet, he only played 1 game last season. I'm actually going to go over here to his AHL stats. For the Syracuse Crunch in 69 games played, he had 24 goals, 60 points for 60 assists for 84 points. And you kind of see a good trend here. He's been a 60-point scorer at the AHL level multiple times. He's been around a point per game pace. Last year really came into his own. And this guy's got some good potential. You might look at it like he doesn't really proven too much last season with only 1 game played, but I mean, look at this AHL pedigree. This is still a very, very solid player, and I think could help them, get some good secondary scoring. I mean, is that asking a lot from a guy from the AHL? Absolutely, but I think the potential is there, and I think him being slotted into that third line, being 26 years old, is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And then you have Paul on that third line. I think he's a good, third line center, 32 points, 80 games played, 17 goals, 15 assists. And then Tanner Jeannot. You need Tanner Jeannot, though, to be far better than what he showed with the Lightning last year. I thought they gave up far too much for Jeannot. I understand that they're in a win now mode, but for what he gives you, I just don't think he's that dynamic player that's going to ever justify the amount of draft capital that was moved to get him. But Tanner Jeannot, when he plays the best version of himself is a very, like, he's a good middle six guy, a guy that could slot into the second line or third line. But they're going to need him to produce probably at least around, not to put too much on him, but maybe probably around 40 points to even somewhat, I mean, even then, it's just somewhat justify what they gave up to get him. And then on this fourth line, you got Luke Glendening, Tyler Mott, co-host on this channel. Fajardo loves some Tyler Mott, loves him in a fourth line role, and I do too. I think he's really good in that role. And then S.E. Mont, he's good as well. So if I'm looking at the forward core group, I like the fourth line. I think the third line with that Barre Boulet, and I apologize if I'm butchering that, they have a potential to be average to above average. And if Tanner Janot can really just be the best version of himself, while I don't think they have the highest scoring offense in the Eastern Conference, they're going to be at least probably towards the top end of it. I like the star power they have. I mean, when you have Point, you have Kucherov, you have Stamkos. Most teams would just love to have one of those type of players, and Lightning have multiple. So for me, I think they're going to be more, if I was going to have to say out of the 16 teams in the Eastern Conference, I could see them being like 8th in scoring or higher. But I also could see them being lower depending on how some of these, I would say, coin flip players work out. So, you know, I think the Lightning offensively would be fine enough. Now, defense. Victor Hedman, that guy is a workhorse, big boy, 6'6", plays a physical style of game, and is a good puck mover. 49 points in 76 games played. Per-Bricks, 20 points in 69 games played. I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, was that the pairing? I don't believe so. But Sergachev and Radish, I think, are capable defenseman. Sergachev, he's younger, 64 points in 79 games played. You know, Hedman's not ancient by any stretch of the imagination, but Sergachev's 25 years old, has a lot of hockey left in the tank. And Hedman, this is a contract year. Oh, I'm sorry, no, he's got one more year. I apologize. With Hedman, he's got a couple years left on his deal, 32. So Sergachev is going to be, you know, the future of the back end. And then they added DeHaan and have Cernak back there on the back end in a third pairing. I think that's quality. When I'm looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning defense, I think it's, I mean, look at it. The smallest guy is 6 foot. You know, you have 6'6", 6'4", 6'2", 6'1", 6'3". They're going to be big and physical to play against. And if they want Vasilevsky to be the best version of himself, you know, I think Tampa Bay Lightning defensively should be good enough. They're going to be about an above average D-core. DeHaan and Cernak, an Abonim pairing isn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. And as for the goaltending, I mean, Vasilevsky's Vasilevsky. You know, 60 games played, 2.65 goals against average, a .915 save percentage, a 34-22 record. He's a good goaltender, one of the best in the world. And, you know, some people, you could still make the argument for him being number one in the world. In my opinion, that is Shesterkin for me. But I like Vasilevsky. Big guy, 6'3", extremely athletic, amazing reach. He's very good with his fight. Like, when you watch, not to go on a little rant about Vasilevsky in a positive manner, but when you watch Vasilevsky, for a goalie that big, he is so good at, like, shutting down those down low shots, because the bigger you are, you're like, well, wow, you take up more than that. But some of those goaltenders don't have the quick reflexes Vasilevsky has, and he's like that goalie you make in, like, a creative player that has amazing down low saving abilities, like with the butterfly and stuff like that. But also the huge size, so it just takes up so much yet. I really do. I'd love Vasilevsky as a goaltender. I'd love to have him on my team for sure. And then in the backup, they have Jonas Johansson, 3 games played, small sample size. For me, the backup goaltender when it comes to the Lightning isn't as big of a deal, because when I'm looking at the Lightning, Vasilevsky is going to play pretty much all the important games. He's getting 60 games played last season. Now, you could make an argument, and this is one of the worries I have with goaltenders where they're really just the featured goalie. It does worry me about having so many games played on him and just shortening his career. One of my favorite goaltenders of all time, Mika Kiprusoff, I felt like that's what happened with him. He just got so run into the ground that when it reached the end, man, it reached the end quick. I thought if they game managed Kiprusoff a bit more, he would have played a few more years in the NHL. And that is something I do worry about Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky's been on some extremely good teams. They've obviously won 2 cups. And I think they have some good talent here where they could be a threat in the Eastern Conference. Do I think this version of this team is as stacked as previous versions? Absolutely not. But heck, we saw the Florida Panthers just get hot at the right time and they went the distance. Now, they did end up losing the Vegas Golden Knights, but you never know what can happen. And, looking at this roster in totality, they also have Hayden Fleury on this roster. You have some guys that are gonna, make some noise or make some, moves to try to, get to that next level, get some ice time. But this is pretty much, I believe, what you're gonna see right now. I'm hoping Johansson can be quality enough where they can at least get him like 25 to 30 games. They're not going to do that. John Cooper, head coach. I'm not a head coach. He knows what's best, but I'd love to just save Vasilevsky a bit so he's well, rested for the postseason. But overall, when I'm looking at the totality of this team, are they going to finish in the top three? I think this is a top three team in the Atlantic. I like the center depth that the Tampa Bay Lightning have, and the wings that play center and the center that play wings. They have some good flexibility up front, and they have enough young guys in there that should have legs for the rest of the season. Defensively, I like what I would have with Hedman and Sergachev. And that's the funniest part about the Tampa Bay Lightning in a lot of ways. They have like multiple players on defense and up front. You're like, usual teams would just have one of them. And they have I would say, a well vast of riches when it comes to talent, especially top tier talent on their roster. I just worry, would the secondary scoring be good enough? And that's pretty much my only worry. And will they be able to rest Vasilevsky enough for them to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals? But yeah, I think this is easily a top three team in the Atlantic. They have all the star power in the world. And just going into the Syracuse, their AHL team, players of note, they're like, hey, maybe could make a fight here. Obviously, they have him in cap friendly already, Barre Boulet. Simon Ryfors, he, if I remember correctly, he's around the same age. You might have some guys here that battle and, try to, for that third, fourth line spot. And, Carrick. That is right. Carrick is down here. Okay. Carrick, maybe he could get some defensive time. But, yeah, I think overall, what you see is what you get with this team. And I don't think there's anyone really down low in the AHL system for goaltending that would challenge Johansson. So if I'm going to just make my honest-to-God prediction, top three in the Atlantic, and if everything pans out, they could make some goddamn noise in the postseason. But I'm interested to know your thoughts. How do you think the Tampa Bay Lightning will do in the playoffs? Or I should say, how will the Tampa Bay Lightning do in the regular season? Do you think they will finish the top three, wild card team? Do you believe that they are a Stanley Cup contender this upcoming season? I'm Captain Paul. I'll see you in the next one.